Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you why we left the EU, and it has nothing to do with taking back control. It has nothing to do with stopping all those dreadful European people coming over here and working in our hospitals and working in hospitality and digging our vegetables and so on. Nothing to do with that. It is all because of money. Now, as everyone now knows, London has become the world centre for money laundering. And if you're a Russian oligarch or if you're a Mexican drug dealer and you've got lots of money that you want to get rid of, you bring it to London, and there are accountants and there are lawyers and there are estate agents and all the people you could possibly want to look after you are there, and also there are all the posh shops and the nice hotels and so on. So it's a perfect place if you've got loads and loads of money to come and launder it. And we have built up quite a nice profession in money laundering. And also we're known as the world centre for tax evasion. And so if you've got profits you don't want to pay any tax on, London's the place to come, because there are people there who are experts at avoiding tax. There are, as you will know, tax havens all over the world. And there are about a dozen or so main ones, of which at least half are what are known as British overseas territories. That means that they're really governed by the UK. The governors of these tax havens are all appointed by the Crown on the recommendation of the government. So in other words, we more or less have control over them, and they're all subject to British law and so on. And these tax havens are places where you can put money, and it's all anonymous. It's a great deal of secrecy, and where you pay little or no tax. And because we've got all these tax havens, of course, people who want to evade tax will often come to the UK. And we all know, for example, about all the big American brands that operate in the UK and make vast profits but don't pay any tax. And the reason they do that is because, for example, they'll form another company. They'll have a company in the UK managing the UK operations, and then they'll have a company somewhere else, perhaps in a tax haven. And that company will own the license to the trademark for the whatever the brand is. And so come the end of the year, this company has made a huge profit from their operations in the UK, but then they'll say, unfortunately, we've got to pay a license fee for the license to our sister company, which is in the Bahamas or wherever. And so all the profit is then sent off to this tax haven where they don't pay any tax at all, and no tax is paid in the UK. It's common dodge, happens all the time. Now, the EU realised this was going on, and they really wanted to put a stop to it because it had become so ridiculous that people were evading tax so easily and so much. And so they came up with an idea in 2015, I think, which was to be introduced in the beginning of 2016, something called the Anti-Tax Avoidance Directive. And of course, as members of the EU, we would have been bound by this. We'd have been part of it. But of course, the referendum came along, and as a result of the referendum, we decided to leave. And 3 days after the referendum, we contacted the EU and said we will not be signing up to the Anti-Tax Avoidance Directive. In other words, we were free. Phew! People in the city must have sighed with relief that we were not going to be bound by these new rules governing tax evasion. And so we're free to carry on doing it, and that's what we're doing now. And so when it came to the referendum, there were a lot of people who had a very big interest in us leaving the EU. People like, for example, there's a well-known MP who's got a business in finance, and he has his operations based in, I think, in Dublin and also in the Cayman Islands. And he was very vociferous about why we should leave the EU. But he didn't say it was because I'm worried about having to pay tax if we do that, or I have to reveal how much profits we're making and so on. No, it wasn't that. He said he would get cheaper food, clothing and footwear. That was quite easy for everyone to understand. And so everybody went out voting because they thought leaving the EU would result in prices coming down. As I say, his business is based in the Cayman Islands. Let me tell you about the Cayman Islands. 3 little islands in the Caribbean, population 78,000. In that little island, there are 100,000 companies registered. Now, why is that? Why would you register a company in a little island with 78,000 population, many of whom are extremely poor, incidentally, in the middle of the Caribbean? Why would you do that if there wasn't some significant benefit? And of course, the benefit is that you have secrecy and you don't pay any tax. And so all these rich people, lawyers and friends of prime ministers and things, who had vested interest in us not being bound by the EU anti-tax evasion directive, all pushed for us to leave the EU. And because they had the money and the influence, and because, if you're very rich, I mean, you get to know MPs, and there are limits on what MPs can accept in terms of gifts and hospitality and all the rest of it. But of course, you get round that, and so you make friends with MPs and ministers and so on, and you wine them and then dine them, and then you invite them to come and see your sisters, come and visit your boat in the Mediterranean for the weekend, and all this sort of stuff. And so they're all as thick as thieves. And whilst there probably weren't many MPs who were worried about their own tax affairs having to be revealed, they were many of them friends of people who were concerned about these things. And so you got so many politicians going around talking about all the benefits of Brexit, which were just utter lies. I mean, particularly the money on the side of the bus. And don't forget, that was Boris Johnson who was going around doing that. Boris Johnson, who incidentally went to as Prime Minister, went for the weekend to the house of Yevgeny Lebedev in Tuscany. Had a thoroughly enjoyable weekend, no doubt. But in so doing, it's like, let me just interrupt this for a second. Let me just go back. If you're in business and you want to sell something to customers, if you can somehow become friends with the buyer, and if you can somehow sort of take them out to lunch, or if you can do a favour for them, it just changes the relationship. And it's the same with politics. If you can somehow make friends with a politician, if you've got the money, you'll get access. You make friends and you do them a favour, or you invite them out to dinner, or you invite them on a holiday, or you play golf or whatever. It changes the relationship. There's then established an obligation. The person, the politician, receives who receives the benefit feels slightly obliged. He's kind of been nice to me, so therefore I must bear his interests in mind in future. And this is part of the whole corruption thing, really, that is becoming quite a big problem, I think. But anyway, that's really how it all happened, and the result, of course, is that millions of people. No one went out canvassing for Brexit, saying, we must vote for Brexit because if we stay in the EU, we're going to have to pay taxes, more taxes, money. All these people who want to launder their money, and all these people who want to evade taxes are going to have to pay taxes if we stay in the EU. No, they didn't go out with that message. They went out saying, we're being bossed around by the EU, and we want to take back control. We want to control our own affairs, and we'll stop foreigners coming here, and we're going to do all these deals all over the world. And those were simple messages to understand. And with the amount of money that the Leave campaign had to push advertising, push messaging all the time, the referendum was lost to those who wanted to remain. And now we find ourselves 2 years on. I mean, it's just so obvious what so many of us have been saying all along, that it was just inevitably going to be a disaster because it so handicaps us. And when you look at our GDP, after only 2 years, it's 5.5% down. When you look at inward investment, it's 11% down. When you look at that, we're forecast to be the slowest growing economy in the G20 next year. I mean, it is an absolute catastrophic disaster. But the only ones who've actually benefited, who are sitting pretty, who are laughing, are those who are extremely rich and they can go anywhere. If everything collapses here, it doesn't matter to them. They'll be off. They can go and live in Miami or wherever they want to live. And so this was all about very rich people hanging on to their wealth and getting richer. And somehow or other, the whole thing is, apart from being dishonest and corrupt and immoral, it just is disgusting. And sadly, we're all going to pay for it. And that's the way of the world at the moment. And I mean, I don't know if there's anything can be done about this. When I start off saying this constant movement of wealth towards a tiny minority, whilst everybody else gets poorer. I don't know what the answer is. But anyway, that's what I think about it. That's why I believe Brexit happened, because wealthy people wanted to protect their wealth, and it was nothing to do with any of the other things that we were all told. If you've watched this far, thank you very much indeed. If you haven't already subscribed and you would mind doing so, I'd be very grateful. And until next time, thank you for watching, and bye for now.